we can go right ahead and I can explain why my opinion on the the Defensive Player of the Year race has somewhat changed, and why I think Victor Wembanyama deserves to win the Defensive Player of the Year as opposed to Rudy Gobert. Now, you guys might remember from previous podcasts that I've talked about the Defensive Player of the Year before, and how Victor Wembanyama, he has the total and counting stats as opposed to Rudy Gobert, who has the defensive impact around the team, and that's sort of the reason why Rudy Gobert is going to win the Defensive Player of the Year award as opposed to Victor. But this might just be recency bias. After watching a lot of the recent games that Victor has been playing, my opinion has changed a lot as opposed to who I think should win Defensive Player of the Year when talking about Defensive Player of the Year. And I think it should be Victor Wembanyama now instead of Rudy Gobert. And I'll explain exactly what the moment was that made me realize that. So in the matchup against the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, Rudy Gobert allowed Nikola Jokic to drop 41 points. Now, that is a lot of points for someone to drop on you, especially since you're the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, when you're thinking of Defensive Player of the Year, you're thinking of someone who is able to stop someone who is as dominant as Jokic. Now, Jokic is really, really, really dominant, and it's very, very difficult to stop him. So it's not necessarily that, it's no guarantee that your defense is going to be enough to stop somebody of that caliber. However, with the Spurs now matching up against the Denver Nuggets in this next game that's coming up, we have a really good shot in seeing Victor Wembanyama match up against Nikola Jokic, and we can see how Victor holds his own against Jokic and how well Jokic is going to play against him compared to how well he played against Gobert, where he ended up dropping 41. So if Victor Wembanyama is able to hold Nikola Jokic to not scoring that many points and is able to hold them to having a relatively slow offensive game, there is a possibility that a lot of the voters might change their opinions on Rudy Gobert and whether or not he even deserves the Defensive Player of the Year, and they'll give it to Victor. And there's a chance that he could be the first rookie ever to win Defensive Player of the Year. There's not been a single rookie in the history of the game that has won Defensive Player of the Year, and he has a very legitimate shot. If he can hold Nikola Jokic to 20 points on some really bad shooting, there is a chance that the opinion on whether or not he's the Defensive Player of the Year could switch in the voters. Now, we're just talking about the voters here, so let me talk about myself and how my opinion changed. So, in that matchup, when they were playing against each other, the rest of the team, when they see Rudy Gobert, they don't really get that scared. They don't get as afraid of going up on him as I thought they would, or given how great of a defender Rudy Gobert is, it doesn't really seem to affect many people going at the rim. And let me just go ahead and pick up the box scores real quick and their starters because there is a specific player that I do want to mention. Yes, Christian Braun on the Denver Nuggets. He ended up dunking on Rudy Gobert in this game, straight up dunking on him. Now, when he was playing against Victor, he had a wide open layup, but he didn't go up. He didn't go up direct, and Rudy Gobert was directly under the basket when he went up against the Timberwolves. He went up directly over Rudy Gobert and straight up dunked on him. Victor Wembanyama was behind him. He had a whole lane to the basket, and he decided not to dunk the ball. Instead, he decided to kick it out to Michael Porter Jr., who ended up making the three. So it was a great decision by him in the end to not go up. but it was a wide open layup. It was a wide open lane to the hoop, and he had it. He was directly under the basket, and he had it. But because Victor Wembanyama was like ready to go for that block, he didn't go up on him. And I've started to see that way more now since the All-Star break with Victor Wembanyama. Since then, he's averaged around 4 blocks per game, as opposed to over the regular season where he's averaged 3.6 blocks per game, which is ridiculous, and it's insane the amount of blocks he can get in a game, in an NBA game, as a rookie, and it's only going to get better given how much better he gets as he plays more years in the NBA. But it's the fact that there was a whole 3-on-1 fast break when the Spurs matched up against the Memphis Grizzlies. There was a 3-on-1 fast break. Victor Wembanyama was sitting in the paint, and every single one of the players that was on that fast break refused to try and go up over him. They would have rather stay at the 3-point line and take that 3-point shot. And that is not an individual stat you can track. That is impact. And I said before that the Defensive Player of the Year award, it's down to impact and how impactful a player's presence is as a defender. And there's just that impact that Victor has. It's not the same that Rudy Gobert has. Like, Rudy Gobert's impact is making the team better defensively. But him individually, players just aren't as afraid of going up on him as they are as going up on Victor Wembanyama. And I feel that alone just completely changed my opinion, because here we have grown NBA veterans, grown NBA athletes that are scared to go up on him. Even if he's like somewhere in the vicinity around the rim, they don't want to go up. But if it was Rudy Gobert, they would have no problem going up. And you can see that difference when you watch Victor play and when you watch Rudy Gobert play. So that impact that Victor has had recently when defending the rim, I think it's way more than the impact that Rudy Gobert has, despite the team success that Rudy Gobert has had and the defensive success that the team as a whole has had. Because I mentioned previously, it's not just Rudy Gobert that is the reason why the team is ranked so high defensively, even though it's a very odd coincidence that when he was on the Jazz, they were ranked number 1, and now when he's on the T-Wolves, they're also ranked number 1. It's also a combination of Anthony Edwards, who is a very, very good defender, and he's not one of those lazy defenders out there on the perimeter that has sort of helped them. So it might be more so the culture that Rudy Gobert brings around his defense that impacts his team to playing better on the perimeter on the defensive side of the ball. Whereas Victor, you literally put him under the rim, nobody is going to go up over him. Not to mention, Victor is also very, very good at blocking a 3-point shot. He is probably one of the best 3-point shot blockers that the league has seen, because is not really a common thing to be able to do, to block a 3-point shot. So I have a feeling that once his career is over, he's going to finish his career with the most 3-point shot attempts blocked ever in NBA history. Whatever ESPN stat that is, whoever holds that record, I have no idea. But if there was an ESPN stat that he was going to break, it's going to be that one, along with so much more. But that sort of like changed my little perception on Victor and his Defensive Player of the Year. And it's all going to depend on whether he even plays this game against the Nuggets, and if he plays well against these Nuggets, and if he has that same impact on the defensive side against these Nuggets. If he's able to hold Nikola Jokic on his own, then I really don't think there's going to be any argument for him being the Defensive Player of the Year over Rudy Gobert. I really don't think there's going to be much of an argument. Especially, because that was the reason why he already won Rookie of the Year. Because he matched up against Chet, and when he matched up against Chet, he completely outplayed him, as well as was able to get the win. Even though the Oklahoma City Thunder are a much better team than that Spurs team. So, with that in mind, depending on how he plays against Jokic, it could be the make or break for his Defensive Player of the Year award. So that's my take on it. And with that, we are out of time for this second segment. So now I will be going on into the third segment where I give a quick recap of all the NBA games that went down last night. So stay tuned after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.